Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. And we're really happy to have our friend Ariel Pliskin, who incidentally lives in the same area, towns, as my daughter Athena in Massachusetts. So we were chatting a little bit about Amherst and Greenfield, Mass. before you all came in. So I'm going to mute myself. Ariel, once again, thank you so much. Welcome. We appreciate your time and sharing your story and your heart. And I'm going to mute myself and step back and let you take the reins.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's really great to see everyone. And for several years, Zen Peacemakers was very central to my life. I actually moved to Massachusetts in order to join a socially engaged Buddhist seminary that Bernie Glassman had created in Montague in Western Massachusetts. And that got me involved in a number of different projects, which, yeah, for a good chunk of time was really, my whole life was organized around that. And since then, I haven't been as explicitly involved in community, but the principles have been central to my work, and I've done some writing, and I'm now a psychotherapist and run some groups, and some of that is based on the 3 peacemaker tenets and Buddhist principles. And I've appreciated this invitation to talk about this era where I was more heavily, directly involved with the Zen Peacemakers and more involved in this work of community meals. And it's been really kind of sweet and rich for me to return to that era after not having thought about it as much. And what I'm planning to do is share a couple videos. There's one video about the cafe that we made several years ago, and then I dredged up from the depths of my hard drive a video of my ordination by Bernie Glassman as a Zen minister. That's actually that was the purpose of the seminary that I came to. It was minister training. And I haven't really looked at that video in a while either, but that was a little over 10 years ago. And I'm also, as we were talking before we started, some of these folks that I was very deeply involved with several years ago that I haven't seen for a while, even though we don't live too far away. And it's always a delight when we do. I'm really glad, Kirsten, to see you here today. Kirsten was my collaborator and then basically successor in terms of running the Stone Soup Cafe, where there had been, as you might know, Bernie has this history with work in food, that he had started the Greyston Bakery, which creates the brownies for Ben & Jerry's and provides people with jobs through this open hiring policy. And he was at the time doing some collaboration with Jeff Bridges, and Jeff has been involved with hunger work, so they had some ideas around doing food work. And I think another idea at the time that Bernie was promoting was creating intentional communities that would do socially engaged Buddhist practice. And that's the seminary that I joined, was focused on that. So there had been a prototype of the cafe that was happening in Montague when the Zen Peacemakers were based in Montague. And then it was struggling for a while. And the role that I played was sort of to bring people together to make it happen again on a consistent basis in Greenfield, which I did for a couple years, and Kirsten and others have continued on that since then. yeah, so I think what I would like to do is just share a couple of videos and then open it up and hear questions you have for discussion, questions you have for me, for comments, reflections. Yeah, just start thinking about that, what you would like to get out of our meeting today, and then I can talk more. I can also facilitate conversations. I do a lot of that kind of stuff, so be happy to kind of cater to the folks in the room. And I'm curious too, just who folks are and what I guess actually even before we start, I wonder if I could even just hear from, let's say, start with two people, just sharing who you are, what brings you here today, what's your relationship with Zen Peacemakers. If anyone would be so bold as to dive in with that.
My name's Jacqueline Kramer, and how long have I been with Zen Peacemakers, Jeff? I don't know.
Thousands and
My,
thousands of years.
my whole life and beyond. Um, I love it. It feels like home, even though I haven't seen almost anybody in person, except for at Auschwitz. Um, and I'm really interested in service in relation to food. I'm involved with the slow food movement here in Sonoma, which supports local small farms and sustainable food production and food equity. And it's kind of I love cooking and feeding, and I love the elemental aspect of food and sharing food with people, and food is love. And so that's what I'm doing here.
Hmm. Thank you. Would maybe one more person like to share? Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in. I'm David Gibson. I'm in Denver. I'm a member at the Zen Center at Denver. We're a ZPI affiliate, and we're connected with food through a couple of our social action activities. One is we send a group of volunteers to Metro Caring Food Bank in the city. And we're starting to expand that beyond monthly volunteering to ask members to bring their overflow of their home gardens to the Zen Center. And then we provide that as additional food supply to Metro Caring. We're also exploring providing sack lunches and hygiene kits, more of the grab and go things. Folks need appointments at Metro Caring to shop in the marketplace. So they have a need for grab and go things where if someone just walks in, then they can still get something if they don't have an appointment. So that's what I'm involved in, and what our local Zen Center is involved in regarding food.
Mhm.
Ariel, I might toss in just a couple of things. And the concept of the kitchen appeals to me. Don't tell anybody in the current Department of Education, but 53 years ago, the first economics class I took at university was from a Marxist. So I've always been drawn to the from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. But we'll keep that as our secret. One thing I'd love it if sometime during your talk, you address the issue of taking action, doing something that you have no idea whatsoever how to do. Because I think we're about to graduate our third cohort of Zen Peacemaker Order students, so there will be about 100 graduates in total pretty soon. And I think that's a big roadblock for a lot of people. Like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the skills, all of that, and you guys had to face that. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, doing something you don't know how to do. Yeah, David.
I just want to throw in a slightly different food origin story. I came today mainly because I'm fairly new to Zen Peacemaker. I'm in the current core training, but I came today because variety of reasons. But one major one is that in my early 20s and 30s, I myself was dealing with an eating disorder, and so in the whole journey of healing, the power in all its glory and all its complications of food and relationship with food and hunger and body image, a whole mess of things, is a very kind of poignant and important area of life for me to explore, to continue to explore. And I've also worked with Meals on Wheels, delivering meals with young people at a residential school that I was teaching at, who were dealing with their own developmental challenges, and just to watch them deliver a meal to a door and the people receiving it was a delight. You know, it was just, so I have this wonderful kind of mix of why I'm here today. I just wanted to say that as kind of a slightly different perspective. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that. So, a little bit of background before this video. The whole cafe idea came from the Zen Peacemakers tradition of street retreats. And when we would eat in soup kitchen, is anyone not familiar with street retreats? Okay. So most people are familiar with them? Yeah. So when we would eat in soup kitchens, we would find that we would often get treated with lots of love, but not with dignity. That there was a sort of handout and hand down and talking down and sweetness from a distance, from a lot of separation. And Bernie really wanted to see something where you couldn't really tell who's being served and who was serving, and that you're breaking down the barrier between self and other. And the way that we did that in a lot of ways, one of the ways was making it pay what you can instead of free. And then also lots of the folks who came in who would otherwise also go to a soup kitchen were also volunteering and helping make it happen. And a variety of different strategies. Yeah, so I think that kind of gives you the basic overview. Did you want to add anything, Kirsten? Okay. All right, so yeah, I think I'll go ahead and share this video.
I wonder how many people will be there today. Usually about 55 people come to the cafe. Actually, usually we have about 40 people, but lately we've had as high as 55. There's been some growth recently.
Tarragon. couple of varieties of sage.
Is that like vanilla sage?
No, I just think it's a variegated. There's a purple variegated and a regular, and regular variegated.
The cafe started in 2010 by the Zen Peacemakers. Basically, the Stone Soup Cafe is a community meal. A lot of people come in who are homeless or low-income families who are hungry and they need food. One thing we try to do is provide fresh fruits, locally grown vegetables, and healthy food. We want to create an environment that families feel comfortable bringing their children to not be properly nourished at that critical time, and it affects them for the rest of their lives.
Certain places that they won't let my son go into the soup kitchen because he's too young. So I like it here.
Middle-class people coming in to serve also take time to sit down and get to know guests who come in and need a food. Likewise, guests who come in and need a food also help out. We do a closing circle and an opening circle where people share their names and get to know each other a little bit.
From the very beginning of steps to service, it's setting up the home and prepping food and cooking food, to participating in spiritual practice and counsel afterwards by being in a group and creating community. This is a different place.
This is like the baseline of how I want to live, being together and having an open door where people can come and go and serve or not serve and just relax, and the energy in the environment is so engaging at the same time.
You could have one girl coming in from high school talking about the pressures of applying for college, while someone else is talking about how hard it is to live on a street and not knowing where they're going to sleep tonight and where they're going to get their next meal. And then they come together and they're understanding each other.
But I start a fire on Sunday just to keep warm. Get like canned food from like the food bank and just whatever. Beef stew, soup, you make your own hamburger, macaroni, or whatever you had to do.
It's not good to be out there. I've been there, and I won't ever go back to it. I mean, I got myself out of it, and I know they can do it too.
People are getting skills they could use in the workforce, in the food service industry.
This is a chance for people to get sort of off the street. Their senses are enlivened. They're in an environment where they feel, like I said, happy and safe and warm and comfortable, and they can really engage in this wonderful food that we serve here. You really get to interact with the guests. You really get to see their faces, see the smiles, feel the warmth and the love that they have. Because when you put the love into the food, they're enjoying it, the love comes right back.
It's a special place to go to and socialize.
At the beginning of the summer, we were 30 to 35, and today we served over 60 people. We worry about running out of food now.
On Sundays, there's no meal. Some people just have to wait until Monday morning for salvation and we open up.
One thing we'd like to do over the next year, we'd like to expand to cover Sundays as well. Things do grow with hard work, but it's also been humbling me to see how much work it really takes. From the ingredients that people donate, the hours that people volunteer, and live music, all of that takes work. In order to continue offering what we offer, we need your help. We cannot do this alone. Let's do this work. Let's reduce hunger. Let's bring people together and build a community.
And then just a final little update. So that's Kirsten who's here. And there we are on the 10th anniversary a couple years ago. The town and the state were celebrating. And they got a commendation from the two houses of the state legislature. That was pretty cool. Yeah, so any comments, reactions, questions?
Jeff, do you want us to just unmute or raise our virtual hands? Or
Yeah, no, I think we're a small enough group. Would be mindful not to step on somebody else, but just go ahead, David. Just open up, and I'd love to hear from everybody.
Sure. Jeff knows I'm really shy at these gatherings. I never speak up. So, Ariel, the thing that struck me is in different cities that I've lived in and different food programs that I've been associated with, everything that I've experienced seems more that separation is there. It's a church food bank where it's just, coming by and having an allotment of food that you can pick up, and there's somebody, in a basement at a church, or like with Metro Caring, it's a little better because it's set up like a small grocery store. But there's most of the volunteer effort is back of house, and there's not as much connection with community members. So it really strikes me that the Stone Soup model is kind of a radical departure from what I'm familiar with in my own experience and from what I see here in Denver. So I guess my question is, has there been any success in replicating Stone Soup in other cities? Is this going on other places and I'm just not aware of it? Are there ways to try to replicate that model in other places? It seems like such a radically different model that I just wonder how much it's expanded to other places, or if people have tried. That's the main question that comes up for me.
Yeah. The main network that I had been a little bit involved with is called One World Everybody Eats. And that's a network of pay what you can cafes. And they sort of range within that network from places that look and feel a lot more like a restaurant to ones that look and feel more like a soup kitchen, but that they're all united with the pay what you can philosophy. And that's the best that I know of in terms of, and they've got some in Colorado. At least they did. It's been a few years now, so I don't know
what's the name of that organization again?
I'll pop it in the chat too, but it's One World Everybody Eats.
I can just say that Stone Soup at this point is one of the longest running pay what you can endeavors in the nation. There have been others and they have failed. And on some levels, pay what you can is something that we still continue to work on to build its robustness. My colleague Jansen is going to give you our annual report so you can see where we are today. It's in the chat also. And we have had an intern looking at all the pay what you can endeavors across the nation to see what's still there. One World Everyone Eats, when Ariel was involved, had like 80 different pay what you can cafes, and the pandemic decimated a lot of them. Not us, luckily, but it's like there might be 45 of them in the nation right now, and none of them look the same. But my colleague Jansen and a board member have been contacting them one by one and having conversations to see if we could create our own network where individuality and uniqueness of every program is valued, but we could share resources, ideas, and other things like that. So it's a project we're working on now, outside of the One World Everyone Eats organization that has very specific requirements for membership. And it costs a lot of money, and we want to offer something for free. So, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, I was curious what happened with that whole thing.
Thanks, Kirsten. That feedback's really helpful. Just understanding kind of the big picture.
I think the other thing that I want to say to all of you is that what Ariel brought with, Bernie and Jeff's vision, and what Ariel brought, and the way that we all collaborated to work together, many of what those concepts are and the philosophies are alive and well here today, that we honor him as a founder. And we continue the work. We talk about Bernie all the time. We have a mini hands portrait of Bernie that's in our main room, and we see him every single service. And we talk about him as our Roshi often, because he taught us so much. And Ariel left us a legacy that, yes, we co-created, but we talk about Ariel too with lots of love. So, it's we honor the agreements, and we honor the three peacemaker tenets all the time, and across all of the ways we interact with each other and our community. So thanks, Ariel, because without you, we wouldn't be who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen that when I've returned the tenets being posted and talked about. Other questions, reactions?
Yeah, to me, one of the biggest differences is that it's a meal, that's different. It's not a food bank where people come in and get food and leave, and maybe they don't even know don't know how to use it, or maybe they don't have like people who live on the streets, how do they cook their food? To be able to sit down with people and tell each other their stories and contribute to that community that's created, I think, to me, that's one of the things that makes it really unique. So thank you.
Uh-huh.
I just want to express my appreciation. Watching the video is really heartwarming, and I think it's just such an incredible experience to be able to sit with each other and have a meal, and not have the familiar barriers of whether it's whatever it is, economic kind of levels or class level, whatever. It's just to really be able to sit in the face-to-face kind of human presence of our basic needs, and that includes food, but it really includes this kind of open-heartedness to each other that I just find very moving. It's very special. Thanks.
So the next thing I'd like to ask is actually for you to help me help you. So I used to, before I did the Stone Soup stuff, I was Bernie's assistant for a bit and would travel with him while he was teaching. And, everyone used to say that Ananda, the Buddha's disciple, had a perfect memory because he could recite all of the Buddha's teachings. But I think he probably just heard it so many times that he eventually started to memorize it himself. And one thing that Bernie would often do at the start of a talk, he would have people write down their comments on a paper and collect them all and kind of go through and shape the offering around that. So I would like to ask each of you to put a question in the chat that you would like to have addressed or explored today. either for me personally to talk more about. I could share more about my experience with Stone Soup and that work and working with Bernie and the training with the Zen Peacemakers and so forth. I could facilitate some more discussion. But even if you don't have a burning question, I ask everyone to please think of a question that would nourish you and to go ahead and take a moment and think of that and then put that in the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to just run to the bathroom real quick.
These are good. These are great questions. I think it'll be a rich conversation. Thanks everybody for contributing.
Yeah, this is great. And I'm glad Kirsten is here because some of these you could answer that I couldn't in terms of what's happened over the years.
Anytime that you want to throw something my way, you just do that. But
Hey.
I'm here as much to learn and bear witness with you as to be helpful. Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, these are great questions. In terms of what are the changes that you see in yourselves and the people who come to eat and share time and conversation together, there are a few anecdotes that come to mind. So I remember one time in a council circle. So we would do council circle after the meal, and one time somebody came in and he said that he recently got off the bus and he was in town and I think his brother had died and he didn't have bus fare to go see the brother or something like that. And I remember after me and another volunteer went to the ATM to get some cash and we're talking about it and we're like, there's a good chance, there's a possibility he's making this up or hustling us or we'll never see him again. But we're okay with that. And we gave him some cash and he ended up being a very regular attendee over years. And also that other volunteer became a close friend of mine. And that was a sweet little moment of seeing reciprocity. In terms of the dark and overwhelming days, yeah, at the time I didn't know it, but in the last few years I've realized and been diagnosed with autism and ADHD and treated for ADHD. And that meant that and I think when I look back 10 years ago, I see a less mature person than I am today. And even some of the sort of negative stereotypes about autism, I think, in my perspective, were just my particular style of immaturity at the time. But the strength that I had was having a really strong, single-minded focus on a particular goal. And after being inspired by what Bernie articulated, dedicating myself wholeheartedly to it. And in the process, recruiting and getting other people to be involved. So that meant that I had recruited my girlfriend at the time and some other friends, and we had created an intentional community that was based on doing yoga and meditation and social action, and getting them all to contribute as volunteers to the Stone Soup Cafe. And we butt heads on how to do things, and it was a real struggle for me to do it in a more collaborative way. And eventually that girlfriend dumped me, and I was very shocked at the time and didn't really understand why. And now when I look back on it, I see that I wasn't really paying any attention to her at all. And I was just totally going full steam ahead with my own vision of things and not really carving out space for my emotional life and social life as much. So that was hard. And I think, then also sort of coming to terms with so the one thing I'm glad about not having ADHD medicated earlier is that it got me out of lots of roles with tedious and boring tasks. And now a lot more of my time is spent doing intellectually and socially stimulating things, and a lot less. And while I still do some of the executive function stuff, I've managed to really find ways to prioritize doing other things. But that was tough, and then not really making money was tough, and I was just so dedicated to that vision that I didn't really care. And luckily I had enough other privilege that kind of buffered that helped me get by. But was getting by on very little for a while, and it took me a while to finally go to grad school and get a real job. And I'm glad I did what I did with the ministry Stone Soup years, but I'm also glad that I eventually have now found a more stable income. Yeah, and I had some good coaches along the way that helped me sort of come to terms with what I'm really passionate about and what my strengths are. But ultimately grad school was good, and actually getting accurate diagnosis and a lot of insight came with that. I also sort of found, instead of I kind of replaced my meditation practice with dance practice largely. There's a particular type of dance, contact improv, that I've been doing that often involves no music, and it's very you can very much practice the three tenets, is my experience. And I actually think a more embodied practice is a better fit for me, even though I benefited enormously from intensive meditation. But those are a couple things. Kirsten, do you want to say anything about how many days you serve meals now and keeping up the momentum over the years?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks. Um, so the let's take the low hanging fruit. What's my favorite dish to make? All of them. Why is that? Because very early on, Ariel had the confidence in me to lead the food committee. And that team chose that every single Saturday that we sat down together would be a celebration. And so we do food from all over the world. We actually expand people's palates by bringing flavors from the globe. And I have been very blessed to have not only a very rich palate and experience with many cultures and different chefs from around the world, but I'm really good at reading a recipe and scaling it up. The fan favorites here for our community is anything chocolate for dessert, especially chocolate cake or brownies. They love the African peanut stew or the ginger butternut bisque. Lemon caper chicken is a big favorite of folks. We serve balanced meals, so that means that everything is scratch made with love and care. That it includes a soup in the summertime. After Memorial Day and before Labor Day, we do salads, so it'll be a soup or salad, along with 2 veg, a starch, and a protein option. We're a 100% gluten-free establishment, so I used to be a school teacher, and setting your classroom for the person with the most need is important because you can serve everyone. Most of our menu items are vegan, except for some animal products for proteins. And so there's always option. Dignity is first fueled by choice. And so people having choice and understanding what their needs are, or being able to say, I would prefer this, or give us feedback. Hey, you haven't done garlic kale in a long time. I really miss my kale. Whatever it is, we're listening all the time. And our community speaks to us all the time. So we are operating on Saturdays still. We are poised to start a capital campaign to go to a 7-day, 2-meal-a-week business on Main Street, but there are some holdups here in town, and I keep holding off the capital campaign around that. But we have recently, nobody's eating indoors since COVID started, and so we are still doing curbside pickup. And when COVID started, we started a delivery program which didn't exist before. It's fueled on people power. We have 15 volunteer drivers that take food to as many as 125 households in 20 of the towns in our county every single week. We're doing between 550 and 650 meals on Saturday. Yeah, it's huge. Like, it's so funny to see me from 10 years ago in that video. Might even be 11. That video might be 11 years old, where it's like, oh, we served over 60. First of all, boy, I had such a young face then. And yes, I've lost 80 pounds since then. So it's very interesting to see myself. I haven't watched that video in at least 5 years, Ariel. Thanks for memory lane. But I was very, so we're doing a huge business. We have over 500 volunteers every single week. Every single year, sorry. We see between 70 and 80 volunteers every week to run our 2 main programs, the Saturday meals, which includes the delivery component, and the community store, which I put in the chat that we have this community store, and that's run at curbside. We've totally outgrown our building. we're lucky to still have the building, but we do live in a church basement. And then where does our funding come from? Well, it comes from grants and foundations and sponsorships and you, individuals who support the work. We still have a loving relationship with Jeff Bridges, who just sent us a very generous donation 3 weeks ago. I don't know if you heard his podcast with Eve a couple of weeks ago, but it was amazing. And Jansen has thrown some graphics into the chat so you can see the breakdown of expenses and others. For the previous 3 years, my big dream was to, because we train people how to work with food and what the food is all about, my dream was to start a culinary institute. And we did. We created from scratch a workforce development program that gave people tuition-free 12-week course of study that they could then go in with their certification from Serve Safe Kitchen Manager and all of the skills that we taught them to work in the restaurant industry. And we did that for 3 years, one cohort a year, and then funding didn't happen at the state level this year. So yeah, there's lots for me to answer, but I don't want to take Ariel's time. I really just want to say, like, we continue, and the reason we do continue is because of our founders and because of visionaries like Ariel, who said this needs to be a social entrepreneurial enterprise, and we continue to grapple with how do we truly have people understand that we operate in a mutual aid way, that we're all in this together, that humans all need sustenance, and it needs to be good nutrition. And not this is a charity and it's an us and them thing. I say all the time, there's no us and them, there's only us. And if you think there's an us and them, you're deluded. The other thing I say is this is hard work, but it's heart work. That came out of a conversation that I had with Bernie, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. So even though I'm not a Zen Peacemaker, I feel like I'm an honorary member of the club because he taught me in so many ways, as did Ariel. And, we hold space for the next future iteration of this. So anyway, back to you, Ariel.
Thank you. No, I love hearing the update. Yeah, it's really kind of mind-boggling. There's some questions about, questions. There was a couple questions about, in our current political environment, I'm hearing from our local Metro Caring Food Bank that many clients and community members are scared to come for food for fear of deportation. Is that an issue that you're facing? Have you seen that at Stone Soup?
We have not, and we have many immigrants, different immigrant communities that partake. They're our guests, our community members that are our guests. But ICE has been in the area, and there have been pickups and deportations that have happened here. And we have materials here to help people know what their rights are in several different languages. We have had conversations amongst our staff about how to step forward and not let people be intervened with. Our biggest issue is that people aren't actually inside our doors. So it's not like, what they tell you is if ICE knocks on your door, you don't have to open the door. Well, we're a restaurant that happens with everything that happens out on the curbside. And so they're out in the open air. And when we were a restaurant where people sat down, the door was always open. So there are some things there, but we do try to give people information. There are free online trainings, and we do have the delivery service. So while we're not doing our groceries for delivery, we are doing meals, and we don't limit people's meals. So literally, if a family of 4 needed meals for 5 days, we would send 20 meals to that house, and it would be fine. We'd probably even call them and say, would you like them not to be in our usual packaging? Should we put them in different kinds of containers so you could access them differently? Because, you know, when we see things like that, we reach out and ask questions so that we can make people's lives better.
Mhm. Thank you. Another question. How do you recognize the warmth and connectedness experienced in Stone Soup with living in a world where much of these values are not honored or are minimized? And that to me seems like something that was very central to Bernie's teaching and to our work, where it's actually, leaning into and bearing witness to the worst suffering can become our inspiration and our motivation for the work that we do, and not something that leads us to overwhelm or despair. So I think some of you have been to Auschwitz, and I don't know about you, but I've found that to be very heart-opening, and really the way that we did it was really inspiring for me in terms of coming back to the work with a sense of being able to like accept the world as it is experientially, and then do what I can to make it better. Yeah, and this whole thing of talking with people and not at them, that is definitely something that we practice on the street retreats. It's something that the council circles facilitate, and it's I did my internship at the Haley House Soup Kitchen in Boston, which really has that kind of vibe too. It's a former Catholic worker house. And I think it's just like a central value and intention that folks really embodied and practiced. I guess it really takes some self-awareness too, and just seeing the judgments that come up, seeing the prejudices, and practicing not letting them control how we interact with people. And the ways that Bernie's teachings continue to shape your life, and how are you finding ways to connect with your community and build bridges across difference, not post Stone Soup. So yeah, one of the other reasons I wasn't focusing a lot on running the cafe and I started another nonprofit that was involved with One World Everybody Eats and this idea of the national networks. But I kind of lost focus on that and got really interested in sexuality and gender, and was going through a little bit of my own identity evolution, and found that I really liked reading and writing and talking about sexuality and gender, including but not limited to my own identities and communities. And between the contemplative practice and building bridges across difference and sexuality, it seemed like becoming a social worker and a psychotherapist was a way that I could bring those things together. And so I've gotten really interested in diversity and in marginalized groups around gender and sexuality. And so I've done some writing about that, and still doing, groups for therapists are really their insurance reimbursements are terrible. It's really not, it's hardly worth it, but it's so much fun that I just keep doing them. And the clients really love them. So I've done a number of different groups, and one of them was a neurodivergent mindfulness group and a neurodivergent sexuality group. And some of those are explicitly incorporating the peacemaker tenets and meditation practice, and that's something that I also tend to write about and talk about. I think what I would like to do next, I guess open it up if there's any comments, and then if not, I'll do one more video and then we'll have a closing circle, I think. Any other comments at this point? Okay. Yeah.
This is kind of off to the side, but Ariel, you've just kind of put a little light bulb on for me about I love being part of my life is filled with music as a musician. And I used to play improv flute for improv contact dancing.
Mm.
And it suddenly dawned on me as you're speaking that that's not knowing, it's bearing witness, and it's loving action. And I loved it. I mean, it was just having no idea and just really kind of allowing myself to be immersed in the movement and the expression before me of people interacting or by themselves moving and all, and just being inspired by that. I hadn't thought of how that so beautifully fits with the three tenets. So thank you. That's
Yeah. Yeah, it's really clear to me. And also because in my experience, so much anxiety and fear and beliefs and assumptions and opinions come up. So then I really have to practice taking the backward step, softening it, letting go, bearing witness. All right. So yeah, I just, like I said, I just put together this video this morning of my ordination at the building where the cafe happens. Kirsten, you were there. And yeah, I just thought I would share that.
So I want to welcome you all. Ari is now becoming actually the third minister in the Zen Peacemaker order. The first one to have this ceremony, and probably the only one that will never happen again like this. The whole notion of a minister is new within Zen. Most of us have trained to be either teachers or priests leading rituals. But a minister is a person who's got a calling to serve the community. Not just to serve those who want to learn how to meditate or want to learn about Zen, but to serve the community in those ways. Now already, he has spent a lot of time doing that. He's trained in it. We had a program of training for the vocation that he chose. And he's interned in Boston area, as many of you know, working in a soup kitchen for about a year. And he's done this beautiful cafe here, in which we will enjoy food after the ceremony. So he's done many street retreats, living in the streets, and he's gone to different parts of the world, living in places of conflict and horror.
he's the one to do this stuff. For me, practicing ministry with you has been a practice of falling in love with dreams and with dreamers. And just as important about falling out of love in order to fall back in again. The first time we met was in a dream. When I was on my second Zen retreat in Argentina, and I saw you on the internet, and I heard you podcast talking about the Novalsky, and I actually thought it was kind of cool. And you appeared to me. It was like very supernatural and mystic guy in a ponytail. And then I decided to sign up to the seminary. And you eventually hired me as your assistant. And from what I recall, the first thing that we really bonded over was when you taught me new web design software, Dreamweaver. And this has occurred to me over the years as a significant metaphor. You know, and you're both, basically, I think we discovered that we're both geeks, British engineer. And I always love the internet, but for me, like seeing behind the scenes and making that transition from being a consumer of the system to a producer. It also, to me, wouldn't be complete to not acknowledge the role that you played in that also. So when you did my formal Zen study, going through the car, a meditation practice, you really brought to me this authenticity and a sense of the simple spaciousness that can be experienced through this practice. Also modeled to me how to pull burning and very heavy guard and also be my own person.
Beautiful. Will you maintain these vows? I will. Will you? I will. Will. I will! Now I can open this bag. Another first.
That's all I need, brother. You're on your way.
I think this is the end, except for a wonderful meal that's going to be shared by all of us downstairs at the Stone Soup Cafe. See you there.
Thanks for giving me a chance to stroll down memory lane and take a look at that. So I think the next thing I would just like to invite a closing circle. And now we're not literally in a circle, so I'll just go by what I see on my screen and invite a sort of council practice format. So you could always pass. You don't have to share if you don't want to, or we could come back to you if you're not ready. But just practicing listening from the heart, speaking from the heart, being lean of speech, and being spontaneous. And yeah, I would just, as a prompt, I would really just invite any reflections on anything that we've done today, any takeaways that you have, anything from that ordination video or from the earlier video or from our conversations, or how you want to use this stuff in your life. I think I just got a delivery. Yeah, the dogs are going crazy. So why don't we Yeah, and I'll just, as a little invocation to start the council, in remembering and honoring Bernie Glassman, the Zen Peacemakers founder, and somebody who was very generous to me and inspired me a lot. And it's been sweet and nostalgic to remember him these last, as I've been preparing for today. So I would just invoke his spirit and his memory and his teachings to join us and to be part of our sharing today. And if I look on my screen, I see Jacqueline. Would you like to go?
Sure. This has been nourishing to be part of this. I'm not sure how it will impact what I'm doing in the world, but I'm sure that it will somehow. I'm just kind of a sponge right now, soaking up different approaches to feeding people and to my practice. And so yeah, I'm just I don't have a lot of output right now. I don't feel a lot of things I have to say, but I'm grateful for this presentation and for the wonderful work you're doing at Stone Soup. And we do have a good number of programs that feed people in my community in Sonoma, in the town, and also Sonoma County. There's really very vivid, alive programs. And I think that the addition of having the food program be a form of spiritual practice as well as, everything else that it is something I'd like to enhance in what I do. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, I see David Gibson. Would you like to share?
Sure. So something that you said, Ariel, really struck me. You talked about suffering as motivation and inspiration for the work versus overwhelm, being sort of drowned in overwhelm and despair. And in my own life, in my Zen practice, in trying to deal with immigrant issues here in Denver, in dealing with family issues, I find myself seesawing between those two poles. At one moment being motivated and inspired, in another moment being completely overwhelmed and despairing. And so I find myself really grateful for the space that Zen Peacemakers created today for this conversation, and just grateful for the nourishment. And so I'm holding space for motivation and inspiration, and trying to keep despair and overwhelm at bay. So that's what struck me.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, I'll be really lean here because we don't have too much time. But Ari, I so appreciate you presenting this, because it just reminds me and it inspires me that regular people like you and all of us here can go do that. Like I said earlier, can go do stuff that we don't know how to do. And the way you do that is borrowing from Nike. We just go do it. 1984, a guy I was working with said, I think I'm going to take up drumming. And I said, sure, me too. I want to be a world famous rock guitar player. And 3 years later, he came back as the drummer for a highly successful jam band. And he just did it. He just taught himself to drum. And he's a brilliant drummer these days. So it's just really inspiring. Thank you for your example, Ari. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Linda?
Yeah, I was just very first of all, thank you for the presentation and just the discussion also, and for you being so open, and telling us about your life too. I just loved seeing the interaction with people and as they sat and shared a meal together. And there was so much a sense of joy and confidence too. People, often I see people, that are in need that, because people don't relate to them in a way that they don't have confidence. They lose that confidence and sense of who they are. And I think I really saw that being opened up in the kitchen, and it was beautiful to see. So thank you.
Thank you. Other David?
I think maybe Kirsten just left. I wanted to say thank you to her for what she's doing and her part of this. And I feel like this whole experience today has been a big hug. and I really appreciated, Ariel, your revealing, talking about your transition to what you're doing now. That there are those people who choose to continue something in a particular area, and there are those people who choose to move and shift and kind of be called to other sort of directions. And so I really appreciated your description of all these transitions, and thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Ariel. While you were presenting, I found Stone Soup affiliated with our county food bank. So there's a great opportunity there. But I liked your piece with Bernie where he described beyond being a priest or a teacher, you can be a minister. And it brought to mind somebody that influenced me as a teenager and wrote a book was Malcolm Boyd, who was an Episcopalian priest, and got to hear him live when I was in college. But where the rubber meets the road is always a nice place to be. And being in community where you're speaking with people rather than speaking at them. I've been fortunate to be in family recovery for 6 decades and personal recovery for 5 decades. And I enjoy working with equine and military vets, first responders, recovery and mental health communities. And they certainly bring a lot of wisdom to the community. So I appreciate the ministerial aspect that you brought and the historical perspective in seeing more of Bernie. So thanks.
Thank you. Jansen?
Hi, everyone. So I am a current employee at Stone Soup Cafe and have been with Stone Soup for 5 years. And it's always really helpful and energizing for me to see more about the history of Stone Soup and to see videos of Bernie Glassman. I never met him, but like Kirsten said, he is very prominent still at the cafe. And when I first started at Stone Soup 5 years ago, immediately was taught the tenets and agreements, and it was just like so baked into everything we do and how we operate day to day with each other as a team, and it's still kind of how we do things. So yeah, it's just really energizing to see more history and to hear about the journey of one of our founders. And thank you so much for presenting and sharing about Stone Soup with all of these lovely people all around the world. So it's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And then let's see. Now, when Kirsten left, the order of the squares changed. So, but Karen, did you go? Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, I appreciated a lot of things. So thank you. And thank you to Kirsten and to Jansen But I think to see one concrete way, because there's an infinite number of ways that if we take time to have don't know mine, and if we take time to bear witness, the infinite number of right actions that can come depending on who we are, where we are. And this is one really concrete way that you brought this into the world out of that, and how much it's done for other people. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank everyone. Yeah, the piece about ministry is interesting. One thing that I cut out of the video is that Bernie said that I would eventually be ordaining other ministers, and that it was just interesting also to see how some of the people that were there that day are still in my life and some aren't, and some of the specific intentions that I had at that time have stayed consistent and some haven't. But I don't know, Jeff, it is something that I periodically think about in terms of continuing to realize Bernie's vision for the new ministry path. And I periodically wonder if that's something I could put some energy into again at some point. I have periodically seen Kanji too, who was another one of the three of us that were ordained at that time. But yeah, but you don't have to be ordained to do the stuff. And I'm hearing lots of really great ways that you all are making this work come to life. And that's really inspiring and exciting to me. So I also thank all of you for coming today and for all the work that you're doing. Yeah, and Jansen, and love to hear about how Stone Soup is continuing. It boggles my mind how much it's grown and expanded. It's so inspiring.
Well, that kind of feels like we're sort of at a natural off ramp here. Ariel, I want to thank you so much for sharing. This was really gentle and soft way to spend some time together. And thanks everybody for participating. These sessions are always so much better when people get engaged and really share their perspective and reactions and whatnot. So much appreciation to all of you.